Stupidity. This is a good live album. Uh, I think it was at the Rainbow. No, I guess it's no. It was recorded in Kersal, the South End at Kersal. It says I don't know, but it's a good live album of Dr. Feelgood, like when they were at their prime. And actually, Julian Temple, the guy that made the Great Rock and Roll Swindle and the Sex Pistols, Filth and the Fury documentary, he made one about the Dr. Feelgood, and God, I can't even think of what it's called right now. But I found a copy on DVD from Australia because I don't think it was released in the U.S. But it's amazing. So if you ever get a hold of that or watch that, teach you everything you need to know about Dr. Feelgood and their legacy, which they're pretty important to rock and roll, whether people know them or not. This album I found, Sneaking Suspicion, picked it up, and if anything, there's one song on there called Paradise, sung by Wilco Johnson. Usually Lee Brillo, that's him on the cover. He sings mostly all the other songs, but that song Paradise, solid. It's like kind of like the Cramps, the Gun Club, has that like cow punk, like really dark, like, drugged out, just attitude, like rock and roll, proto punk. It's awesome. So if anything, for that song and a couple others, it's really, really solid. This one I found and just picked it up because it was Dr. Feelgood, Case of the Shakes. This is when Wilco Johnson left, and now it's the guitar player was Jippy Mayo, and it's cool, whatever. He's like carbon copy, like just looks like your average, rock and roll guitar player that could have been in any of those bands. That's basically just, at this point now, trying to rip off and be Johnny Thunders. It has a couple good songs on it, but can't replace Wilco Johnson. Ducks Deluxe. This is where we see Sean Tyler and Steve Garvey. Really, really good, just bruising band, rock and roll. Has that like early Bon Scott, AC/DC like attitude, but also with some country tendencies. And actually, like AC/DC, they get lumped in a lot with pub rock, even though they're from Australia, and like real pub rock, in my mind, comes from England. But the thing that I make a difference between is like what I consider to be pub rock. None of these bands really went further than the pubs, and I mean, we all know what AC/DC turned into. Not to take anything away from that, but they also have a little bit more of like metal tendencies, which a lot of these bands didn't, because I guess maybe they weren't around long enough to see it through. But songs like Coast to Coast and Fireball on here, awesome. This is the first one I found and bought from Ducks Deluxe. I got really lucky finding this. Never seen it again. It's called Don't Mind Rockin' Nights. It's like a compilation of lots of stuff, but has all the hits, their hits. In my mind, super hits, because I mean, it doesn't matter if they sold tons of records. Doesn't mean that the songs aren't great. Ducks Deluxe, check them out. Tyler Gang. This is Sean Tyler, singer from Ducks Deluxe. His next act, I believe. This is a really good, solid album. What was that song on here? Speedball Morning. Really, really good dark track. Just, if anybody knows what a speedball is, this song will just reinforce that in a good way. Moonproof by the Tyler Gang. It's a later one, I think maybe early 80s on Berserkly. It's a label that put out the Modern Lovers, Greg King Band, among others. Haven't really dug into this. It's on yellow vinyl, which I'm not really a fan of colored vinyl. I like black vinyl, just like many of you true vinyl collectors out there. But I don't know. I got to give it another shot. But just didn't really grab me the first time. But I got it just because it's Tyler Gang, and it was probably only like $2 or something. Good condition. Eddie and the Hot Rods, Teenage Depression, is their first album. This is when we make another further step from like pub rock, going from folky stuff to light rock to power pop to now they're getting a little faster. These were the guys that were like there at the right time, where all the bands that came before them, like Kilburn, the High Roads, Brinsley Shores, Ducks Deluxe, the Bees Make Honey, all these bands pretty much set up all these places like the Hope and Anchor. There's some other big ones that I'm just not remembering right now. They were really popular, the Elgin, but they basically created this circuit of pubs that now you had people going just to see whoever, and they wanted more and more. And the Ducks Deluxe were like the ones pushing the envelope, and then you get Eddie and the Hot Rods and like the 101ers that come along, and now they've got a younger crowd because of, you know, a couple years have passed by, and they're hungry for more. They already know that they're expecting some good music in there, and then you get Eddie and the Hot Rods, and they just start playing a little bit faster, a little bit more hard edged, and they're, look at the way they're dressed. Like they got leather jackets, they got, you know, they're starting to kind of plant the seeds of punk rock, which, you know, was happening in New York around the same time with the Ramones and, you know, the Dolls. Even before that, the Stooges, MC5. You know, not telling you anything you don't know, but really, really solid album. Important band. You know, these like little stepping stone bands that, you know, when you think about some of your favorite bands, like these are the roots of a lot of that stuff, if this is what you're into. Eddie and the Hot Rods, Life on the Line. This is the one that has Anything or Do Anything You Want to Do. Really, really good power pop hit. Perfect song. It's a good copy. I think I found it on eBay. And solid album, like 2 solid albums by a really, really good band that was, you know, they probably didn't even know that they were that they were paving such, you know, critical roads for those to come. This one is, I think, in the 80s maybe. They came out. It's a later release of Eddie and the Hot Rods, Fish and Chips. I picked it up just because it's Eddie and the Hot Rods, and it's got a couple good songs on here. This song on here, Call It Quits, awesome, like power pop, you know, like punk rock. Like if Cheap Trick was a punk rock band, that's what this sounds like. But I haven't got into all of it, but there's just a couple songs that really caught me. Good stuff. Cato Bell. There's kind of a branch of pub rock that was like, there's some like funk, there's bands like Clancy, there's more country like Chili Willy and the Red Hot Peppers, I think they're called. I can't remember the name, and I'm kind of pissed off because that's like a grail that I've never found. Michigan Flyers, another band, which maybe I'll never find those records, and that's what makes them, I want them even more. Even if they're not good, just because I want to collect everything that is of this genre. But this is one of those that I found. I got excited when I saw it, and that's where it stopped. There's like one good song on here, but it's like, it sounds like, I don't know, like Captain and Tennille or something. Not really my bag. But like a big band, like now this is like a different side of pub rock, but this was happening too. And it kind of also makes me think of like when I was a kid, I remember going to like your average neighborhood restaurant, Hoff's Hut or Black Angus, any of these places in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s with my parents, and you'd walk in and they have like the big cool looking cigarette machine, and it was always dark, and you know, you go to the restaurant, and to the side of the restaurant there was not just a bar, but it was like a nightclub, and there was always bands playing in there. And because I was a little kid that was so interested in music, I always wanted to go in those rooms, and I would just stare at the drummers and look at the lights and just imagining like, man, that's what it's all about. Not even realizing, you know, now that I'm older, it's like this is just some shitty top 40s band playing at Hoff's Hut. Like, how awesome is that? It's not. But that's kind of what these bands are like. But they put out records because this was early on in the 70s when labels were taking chances, and, you know, just stuff was happening. I don't know, it's a different time. This is another one of those bands, Kokomo. One song on here that's decent. Another big act where they're just playing, I don't even know what kind of music it is. It's all over the place, but not if you're getting into pub rock because you want to know the roots of punk rock, this is not it. But yet it's pub rock. This one I was excited to find, Starry Eyed and Laughing. This is a pub rock band. The name obviously taken from the Byrds, and they kind of sound like they're trying to be the Byrds. Got some good songs. Little Steve Perry look-alike. I thought it was funny. But it's a good record. It's okay. It's kind of like I don't know how to put it. But it's definitely mid-level, like mediocre, like rock, you know, like nothing too crazy. Doesn't really grab me too much. Not very memorable. Got to move fast here. Ian Dury. This is the song that has sex and drugs and rock and roll. Really important for the punk rock. Look at that. It's a cool cover. That's, you know, this is like the birth of a lot of stuff. You know, he looks like a skinhead. Wears boots and has that whole style, you know, like a lot of these are like innovators. They didn't know that, just like Richard Hell, you know, showing up in England with safety pins all over himself, and Malcolm McLaren and Vivian Westwood looking at him being like, oh my God, let's create a new race of youth, which they did. And you think Richard Hell was trying to do that? He was probably just junked out and was like, hey man, my shirt's falling apart, I gotta fix it. Ian Dury and the Blockheads Laughter. Bought this a long time ago just because I saw Wilco Johnson and Ian Dury, and never really listened to it longer than, I don't think I ever played it more than twice. Should give it another chance though, whatever. Stiff's Greatest Hits, or Hits Greatest Stiffs, Stiff Records. That's, you know, one of the first punk rock labels. That's what, you know, Nick Lowe put out, was basically their house engineer. He recorded and produced the first Damned record, and single, which was the first, you know, whatever punk rock single before the Sex Pistols, and produced a lot of this stuff. Elvis Costello. This has some good gems on here as far as other things I haven't been able to find, like a band called Rugulator, pub rock band. Has some Tyler Gang on here, Pink Fairies. Starts off with the song that kind of started it all, Heart of the City by Nick Lowe. It's really just rock and roll, like, that turned into punk rock, you know, Heartbreakers, you know, early Ramones, attitude, just good, and just no nonsense. This is what it's about. And it also has the first Damned single, Help, their cover of the Beatles, which is amazing. Plummet Airlines, too, that's another good one on here. And a Lou Lewis track. Okay, then we get into Nick Lowe, his first album, Pure Pop for Now People, which is the American version. The real version is called Jesus is Cool, and this also has Heart of the City, among a lot of other, like, this is just perfect album. If you ever want an introduction that starts and stops with one record for Nick Lowe, this is the one, because it's perfect. It's a perfect album. Nick Lowe, Labor of Lust, this is the one that has Cool to Be Kind, one of his hits. A lot of people know that song, don't know who he is, and they should know who he is. Really, really important songwriter of the 20th century, in my mind. Awesome album. Nick Lowe, The Abominable Showman. It's funny, I bought this record because I was just going nuts and collecting everything for Nick Lowe, and everything by Nick Lowe, and I was getting so lucky that I found everything. Super cheap too, because who cares about Nick Lowe? But the first song on here, We Want Action, it's in the movie Easy Money by Rodney Dangerfield, at the scene where they're in the strip club, and I always remember that song. And then I put this record on, I hear that song, and I'm a kid again watching Easy Money. Strip club scene's awesome. Nick Lowe and his cowboy outfit, different band from that first one. This is when his band's turning into Rockpile. It's really producing a lot with Dave Edmunds. This is a solid album, and it's not just country, but it has some good country-esque stuff. Awesome album. Nick Lowe, Nick the Knife. This has some good cuts on it. What's the one? Burning, that's a good one. Heart, that's a song that he did with Paul Carrack on the Rockpile album. Different version. That's awesome. Nick Lowe, The Rose of England. This one's not my favorite, but I really there's just something about it that I needed to have it. But it has